Hello, everyone. This is Calgary's Criminals Podcast. This is a true crime podcast hosted by none other than a caffeinated deprived Jerlyn
and a sleep-deprived Naomi, and welcome back to our podcast.
Before we start, I would like to give some shout outs to our top listeners, Mrs. Aitwa J. Aizinobi, for being such a supportive and loyal subscriber. We really appreciate all your support throughout the years.
Before we begin, we'd like to send out a trigger warning. We understand that our topics that we discuss in this podcast can be very heavy for some listeners, so we will be discussing them in a way where it can be understood comfortably.
This case is sensitive and deals with alcohol abuse, aggression, and death. If at any times you feel overwhelmed about this topic, please take a moment. Put yourself first, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. Have you heard about the case of the shooting of a Calgary Stampeder?
Oh, you mean Mylon Hicks, the CFL defensive back from Detroit, Michigan?
Yeah, that's him. He was only 23, a defensive back for the Canadian Football League Stampeders.
Yeah, I heard that he was a very good football player back in America, but since he was still an upcoming athlete, he was traded by other teams, and at first, he thought that he could never make it to the NFL in the States until he got a notice from the Canadian Football League.
Wow.
Yeah, so he got a call to join the Calgary Stampeders as part of their training roster, and that's when Mylon thought his dreams were finally coming true.
Oh, wow. So basically, he came from Detroit, Michigan to Calgary to follow his dreams?
Yes, exactly. So, with his mother's approval, he packed up his bags and moved to Canada.
So, to give some background, on September 24th, 2016, the Calgary Stampeders defeated the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. This is a really big game for the Calgary Stampeders, so some of the players decided to celebrate by going to the Marquee Beer Market, a nightclub near McLeod Trail, which Mylon Hicks attended.
I'm assuming that it was very crowded and everybody was drinking and having a good time?
Yeah, exactly, except for a man named Nelson Liguela, who was 19 at the time.
Oh, was it because he was part of the opposing team that the Calgary Stampeders fought against?
No, not even. He was the reason why Mylon Hicks died that night, and why his team, family, and the city of Calgary will forever be shaken.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Right, actually, at the initial altercation, Mr. Nelson was arguably not the principal offender. To give more context to those who don't know, a principal offender or offenders are the people who actually carry out the main act of the crime.
Oh,
So, to summarize, they are the person who actually commits the criminal offense.
I see.
So, for the listeners, to give some context, the team went into a crowded bar. Rene Paredes, a kicker for the Calgary Stampeders, went up to the bar to get a drink, and he bumped into Darwin Concepcion, causing his drink to spill.
An argument occurred after that interaction, and the rest of the Stampede players went up to make sure that everything was okay. Mr. Muhammad came up and challenged the players.
Wait, who's this guy, and why did he go up to the team?
Mr. Muhammad, he was friends with Darwin, the guy whose drink was spilled.
Oh,
He then began to challenge the players.
I see. So he did this to why? Like to assert his dominance or something?
Yeah, basically.
Oh.
And that's when Mr. Nelson, the killer, who was also friends with Darwin and Mr. Muhammad, came up to them, but he didn't say much. Eventually, the altercation cooled down until a second incident involving Mr. Darwin, Mr. Muhammad, and Mr. Nelson, and the team coach, Mr. Carter, took place.
Oh, I remember this part. Coach Carter. So Coach Carter actually went up to the bar to order drinks for some of his players. That's when Nelson shouted out a racial slur, telling Coach Carter to hurry up. One of the players said, "Don't talk to my coach like that." Mr. Muhammad grabbed Nelson and told him to calm down. Coach Carter tried to ease the tension by purchasing the trio drinks.
Oh, that's really nice of him.
Mhm.
And in return, didn't Nelson buy the team a round of drinks too, including Coach Carter?
Yes, but however, in hopes to de-escalate the situation, it brought another one to light due to an action done by Jerome Messon,
Oh.
another player on the team. So he grabbed Darwin's hat and put it on, but eventually returned it.
Oh.
Jerome Messon initially went up to act as a protector for his coach and the rest of his team. However, the way he went up and the way he acted made the situation worse by taking and wearing Darwin's hat as a way to taunt
Oh
him.
my gosh.
Yeah, he was saying things like, "Oh, you think you're so tough, huh?"
Yeah, and after Jerome's actions, it appeared that the situation had somewhat diffused. But Mr. Mohammed still had his arms crossed in an aggressive manner and was texting on his phone while looking over at the team. Mr. Dennis, one of the players, felt uncomfortable and suggested that the team should leave. Some did, but the rest stayed, and Mr. Dennis stayed with them to make sure that everything went okay.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So, mind you, Mr. Hicks, the victim of the crime,
Mhm.
was not involved in the first or second
Oh
interaction.
my gosh.
He was from the back, and
Yeah?
he actually came from the back of the club and sat down to talk to one of his injured buddies.
Oh.
Yeah, so he was never involved at all. Yeah, so fast forward throughout the rest of the night, some of the team members noticed that the trio started drinking, and it had gotten to the point where Nelson was seen bumping into the people around him. He was very drunk and never apologized to the people he bumped into.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Nelson's behavior caused Mr. Dennis to go up to the bouncer of the club and inform him of his actions. The bouncer went and checked and reported back saying that everything was okay.
That was the last time the team interacted with the trio, or so they thought. The team continued to celebrate their big win until the club closed. Once it had closed, the team went outside to continue their conversation and have a good time. That was when Mr. Muhammad came up to them and asked what they were laughing about.
So then, one of the Stampede players responded by saying that they were just having a good time. But Mr. Muhammad kept pressing them and showing signs of wanting to fight.
What the heck?
Yeah, and that's when a pushing match occurred.
Oh my god.
Mr. Nelson came up to Mr. Muhammad and pulled him away, but then he somehow became involved in the altercation.
Oh.
Shortly after, Mr. Nelson was in Mr. Hicks's face, the victim. Mr. Nelson threw a glass in the direction of Mr. Hicks and his team.
Oh my goodness.
And then Mr. Hicks took a few steps to the left and pulled out a handgun.
Oh my. Yeah. So Mr. Nelson fired one shot to the ground towards the front door of the club as a warning shot. This was when some of the team players ducked and some walked away, including Mr. Hicks. But Mr. Nelson had already set his intentions to go after Mr. Hicks. That's when the following 3 shots occurred.
They shot him, one of the players yelled. Another one yelled, Mylan got shot, Mylan got shot.
Yes, one of Mylan's teammates, Mr. Dennis, actually witnessed him getting shot firsthand because he was inside of his car at the time, but didn't witness the events of what led to the first shooting. Mr. Hicks was trying to run in between the cars at the parking lot to avoid Mr. Nelson, but he tripped on his pants as he was running. Yeah, that's when Mr. Nelson got to him and fired a shot at his back. This caused Mr. Hicks to stumble on the ground, and that's when Mr. Nelson fired his second shot and ran.
The trio tried to flee the scene by going into their car and speeding off into a back alley. After 5 to 10 minutes, the police and ambulance arrived at the scene. They were gathering all the possible witnesses to make a statement, including Mr. Dennis. As he was being transported by the police, they had made at least 4 to 5 blocks away from the club, and that's when Mr. Dennis shouted, "That's the shooter." And that's when the police officer made a U-turn to capture the 3 men.
And that's how an altercation that started off with a spilled drink ended Mylan Hicks's life and career.
Wow.
Yeah, so he actually died on the way to the hospital.
I see.
Yeah, when the ambulance came in. Alright, so to dive deeper into the case, let's have a closer look at the accused, the trio who are Mr. Nelson, Mr. Muhammad, and Mr. Darwin.
So let's start off with Mr. Nelson, the guy who actually fired the shots. At first, we argued that he was not the principal offender because from the first and second altercation, it was all initiated by Mr. Muhammad. We would argue that Mr. Muhammad was the first principal offender of the event. Mr. Muhammad was the one who provoked aggression towards the team members when his friend Darwin drink was spilled. He also provoked them again at the second altercation that ultimately led to them to being physical. So Mr. Muhammad would be the principal offender of assault.
Right, because outside of the bar, he pushed everyone, right?
Yeah, he started being aggressive and physical.
Alright, so let's talk about Darwin.
Okay.
The youngest out of the group, only being 18 at the time. So when it comes to their role in the crime, at first, they would not have one. I wouldn't consider him as a principal offender since he didn't even commit any crime.
That's true.
He wouldn't go under the arbitrator role because he never encouraged anyone in his group to commit a crime. And he would not fall under the council because he never advised any of his friends to commit a crime. However, His role changed because he was the person who drove off taking Muhammad and Nelson after he had just shot Mr. Hicks. His role changed into an aider because he helped and assisted someone who had committed the crime. It was also Darwin's vehicle that they used to escape the scene.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about the worst perpetrator,
Mhm.
Mr. Nelson. His role in the crime would also be a principal offender because he committed the crime of murder.
Yes.
He was the one who shot Mr. Hicks 2 times and ran away with his friends.
Yes, so now that we know the parties to the offense and their roles, we can talk about the charges that they received and the factors that can either help, lessen, or worsen their charge. So in Canada, if you're part of the party that has committed an offense, it doesn't even matter how much you were involved. Maybe you weren't even involved at all. You will still be charged with the same crime.
No way.
Yes, so in this case, Mr. Nelson, who shot Mr. Hicks, was charged with second-degree murder. It was mainly supposed to be first-degree murder, but since it was not premeditated and was not planned ahead, they changed their charge to second-degree murder instead.
Oh.
So since Darwin and Muhammad were part of that group, they were also charged with the same offense.
Okay, now let's talk about the circumstances that the judge or justice would look at in order to lessen or make their sentence worse. These are called mitigating and aggravating factors. A mitigating factor is a factor that lessens a person's sentence, while an aggravating factor increases it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so for Nelson, he already had a previous criminal record when he was 13 years old.
Oh my goodness.
And he had charges for assault, causing bodily harm, assault with a weapon, and robbery. The judge will look at this as an aggravating factor, essentially worsening his sentence.
That makes sense.
Yeah, another aggravating factor was that he intended to kill rather than to harm because he shot Mr. Hicks more than once and knew that it would likely cause his death. Mr. Nelson even admitted it to his friends while they were driving off in Darwin's car.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, he said, "I hit 2 shots. I don't think he's gonna make it."
Oh my.
And the court stated that Mr. Nelson had 2 mitigating factors. The first one being his age, as he was only 19 when he committed the crime, so the court took his youth into consideration.
Youth? That's interesting.
The second one being that he has family support. The court stated that Mr. Nelson's family member were present in the courtroom during his entire trial, which resulted in this being a mitigating factor.
Wow, that's crazy.
I know, right?
He committed several crimes at the age of 13?
Yep.
This is very strange because from what I learned, if he committed those crimes at the age of 13, that would mean that the YCJA would hide his records from the public. I'm guessing that because the crime Nelson committed was an indictable offense and a very serious one at that, the court had to pull his records from when he was young so they could consider that as an aggravating factor to get a conviction.
I think so, because if you're 12 to 15 and you commit a crime, the YCJA will handle your case only. But if you are 15 to 17, the courts will consider you as an adult, and then you could be tried in the higher courts like King's Bench as an adult.
Oh, that's true. But won't he have like a special circumstance then? I mean, he did commit those crimes at 13, and in the law's eyes, even if a 13-year-old were to commit murder, they won't be convicted because the court would argue that they did not have the mental capacity to understand their actions. But in Nelson's case, he was a repeat offender of several heinous crimes. Wouldn't that also be an aggravating factor? The fact that Mr. Nelson has a criminal record and a repeat offender?
Exactly, you're correct. And that makes sense because we could argue that a minor has mental capacity for committing and recommitting such severe crimes.
That's true.
Yes, and to refer back to Mr. Nelson's criminal charges, he was convicted of a robbery offense. And part of his sentence was that he was prohibited from using any weapons, but the fact that he used a handgun to kill Mr. Hicks added to his aggravating factors.
Now let's move on to Darwin. Like I said before, Darwin didn't take part in the assault or murder, but he did aid when they were running away from the scene. Darwin was only involved during the first encounter when his drink was spilled, but he never assaulted anyone like Muhammad did, nor killed anyone like Nelson. When the bar closed, he was already inside his car, waiting for his friends. Darwin was the youngest in that group, only being 18 at the time, and had no previous criminal records. He also offered to testify against his friends, Muhammad and Nelson. The judge will consider this as Darwin's mitigating factors. The judge also dropped all his charges because he was compliant and he was a huge help during the investigating process.
Oh.
Yeah, so now let's talk about the defense they could use in court.
Okay.
So in court, Nelson used the defense of being under the influence. It does make sense because they were in a club drinking. He was also seen bumping into people and not apologizing, adding more proof to his defense. When Nelson appealed his case, his diagnosis and test results came and it read antisocial personality disorder, psychopathic personality construct, moderate alcohol use disorder, and mild cognitive disability.
Wow.
Yeah, so with these results, he could also try to argue mental disability. So you can really tell that his lawyer was aiming to get a complete defense. A complete defense is a defense that, if it succeeds in trial, the person being accused will not be guilty and is free of charges.
Wow.
Yeah, so some of the examples that could lead to a complete defense is voluntary intoxication and mental illness, just like in Nelson's case.
Okay.
Alcohol and having a mental illness disrupts someone's intentions and understanding. Therefore, it takes away the mens rea, and in order to consider that a crime was committed, mens rea and actus rea needs to be proven. If one of these things were missing or can't be proven, a crime will be considered not a crime at all.
Okay,
Or
that
a
makes
crime hasn't been committed at all.
that
Yes,
makes
so
sense.
two things has to be there.
Okay.
Mhm.
But there's some contradictions when it comes to his argument.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like for example, he said that he was greatly under the influence of alcohol and he
Mhm.
would not be able to have such a state of mind to kill someone. But then he went ahead and told his friends that he had shot Mr. Hicks and that he thinks Mr. Hicks might not be able to make it.
That's true.
And that goes to show that he understood his actions were severe and that it may result in a death.
Mhm.
Mr. Nelson not only shot once, but he shot twice, which
Mhm.
shows his intent to kill rather than to harm.
Mhm.
And because Mr. Nelson knew that Mr. Hicks was running away to save his life, Mr. Nelson kept pursuing him, and that's when Mr. Hicks was already on the ground and Mr. Nelson continued to fire his gun. Mr. Hicks tried to get up, but Mr. Nelson fired a second shot, which fully brought Mr. Hicks down, and that's when Mr. Nelson flee the scene. The
Mhm.
Crown argued that in the case of intoxication, being within a few inches from someone's head and pulling the trigger is difficult to conceive a successful intoxication defense.
That's true, because from what I remembered, he was actually shot like near his chest, right?
Exactly.
Not too far from his head.
Not too far, he was quite close to Mr.
Mhm.
Hicks. Another defense that Mr. Nelson brought up was the credibility with the witnesses. During the trial, there were many witnesses that argued that it was Mr. Muhammad that had the gun and that Mr. Muhammad was responsible for Mr. Hicks's death. But then again, there were also other witnesses who pointed at Mr. Nelson, saying that Mr. Nelson was the cause of Mr. Hicks's death.
Oh.
His team brought this up as a credibility issue when it came to eyewitness testimony.
Oh, so that's a good point. But actually, this was shortly shut down because of Derek Dennis's testimony and Darwin's contribution to the investigation process.
That's true.
Mr. Dennis was inside his car when he saw Mylan Hicks running towards him. Mylan Hicks fell right next to his car, and that's when Nelson popped up and fired his 2 shots at Mylan. Derek Dennis was there to witness everything. When he was being escorted by the police, Derek was the one that pointed out the shooter, and it was consistently Nelson.
Oh.
Yes. So the fact that Mr. Hicks was unarmed and a total stranger and was fully defenseless and was trying to escape the situation is another aggravating factor for Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson also committed the crime in the presence of innocent bystanders and non-parties, which means he put the public in danger,
Right.
which is found to be another aggravating factor.
Mm-hmm.
Darwin also testified that it was Nelson, and during the investigation process, Darwin showed the police where the weapon was hidden. The weapon was sent to be examined, and it came out that Nelson's fingerprint was on it.
Oh, wow.
This can also add to Nelson's aggravating factors, because when they did their examination in the handgun, it resulted that Mr. Nelson was in possession of an illegal weapon.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Okay, so let's end it off with Nelson's sentence.
Mhm.
The Crown asked for a 17 to 19 years of life sentence before Mr. Nelson is eligible to apply for parole.
But I remember that Mr. Nelson asked the judge for 14 years until he's eligible to ask for parole.
Yeah, you're right, he did, but after the court considered all of the aggravating and mitigating circumstances, as well as addressing Mr. Nelson's character and looking into all of the evidence, they decided that a direct life sentence of 18 years before he could be eligible to apply for parole.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, and when the judge was delivering the sentence, he stated, and I quote, "You are a dangerous man, Mr. Nelson, and Dr. D placed you in the category of a high risk for future recidivism. In my view, it is necessary not only to protect the public from you and to prevent you from harming anyone else, but to also deter you and all others from committing such horrible, violent crimes in our community."
Recidivism? Doesn't that technically mean to relapse?
Yeah, it does. But because, when you think about it,
Mhm.
Nelson relapsed on his first sentencing when he was banned from using any weapons.
That's true.
And I'm assuming that the judge was just planning ahead so nothing like this reoccurs again in order to protect the public's safety.
Oh.
And that's why the judge increased Mr. Nelson's years in order to get approved for parole.
Oh, okay. So that's actually very interesting. Speaking of sentences, he got 17 to 18 years, you said?
That's what the Crown asked for, but the judge raised it to 17 years.
Oh, isn't that almost as close as first degree murder? I know that's higher than a sentence on what you get for second degree.
I think they were just looking at all of his aggravating factors, the fact that he had a criminal record, the fact that he was banned from using weapons and still had a handgun, and an illegal one for that fact, and just, increased his time because he is a dangerous man and they did not want to use this as a precedent for future criminals.
I agree with that sentence.
What do you think of the role that the trio played? Do you think that they should also be held responsible? Because the only person that was really convicted was Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Nelson, yes. But I agree that Nelson should, he got the sentence that he deserved.
Okay.
But I also think that Mr. Muhammad should also be somewhat responsible. Because I feel like Mr. Muhammad started everything.
Yeah.
If he wasn't there in the club that night, Mr. Mylon Hicks would have still been alive.
That's so true.
Right? Because if you think about it, in the first interaction, right? Darwin's drink was spilled, and out of nowhere, he just came very aggressively and went up to the teammates. And the second one, when everything seemed to be
calm,
right? Like the coach even brought everyone drinks.
Nelson even brought them drinks.
Yes. And then for some reason,
Muhammad
is just looking at them, being very
aggressive
and just texting on his phone, showing some glances.
You know what I think?
Yes.
I think Mr. Muhammad was trying to show up some sort of intimidation, trying to seem like a threat.
I agree with you because if you look at that, right, the ego of men, compared to the footballers, they look bigger, and then you compare it to these teenagers, and then I guess their ego just kind of came there, and I don't know, they just started becoming aggressive, especially Mr. Muhammad. And then the third altercation, when the bar was even closed and the team was just celebrating, having fun, Mr. Muhammad thought that they were talking about him, and he even went up to the team and just oh, what are you talking about? But they weren't even talking to him.
They were nowhere near him.
Yeah, and he assaulted them because they went on a pushing competition after that. So I feel like Mr. Muhammad should have been also held responsible.
I feel like although there was a lot of evidence that specifically pointed to Mr. Nelson being the actual person to pull the trigger, I believe that the other two should also have some sort of conviction. I know that Mr. Darwin didn't do much, but he still was the getaway driver.
That's true.
And yeah?
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, he was the getaway driver, and I guess he could argue and say that he didn't know that his friend had just shot someone, but his friend stated in the car, "I shot him, I do not think he's gonna make it."
Right.
So...
But I feel like, you have to take into consideration that he's still 18, he probably just turned 18. And not too long after that, he was still 17. He's still a child.
That's true.
And again, he was the youngest out of the group, and Muhammad being the oldest. So he's a very impressionable individual.
That's true.
And even though Nelson did yell that he shot Mylon, and he said that he wasn't gonna make it, you have to consider that, he might still have the gun, and he's driving. So what if Nelson just like points the gun at him, you know?
That's true.
Exactly. Like if he stops, like, wait, this is wrong, then he could have been the next victim.
That's true.
Yes, and I guess he was just very scared. I felt like he was just like, you know, a kid that was in the wrong crowd. He chose the wrong kinds of friendship.
That's true.
So I'm kind of happy that his charges were dropped, because I'd consider him as still a youth. Speaking of youth, when you were talking about the mitigating factors for Mr. Nelson, the court said that they took his age being 19 as a mitigating factor.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make sense, because in Canada, you're literally considered as an adult if you're the age of 18, right?
Yeah, you're true. That's right. I would think that since he is 19 and he committed such a crazy offense, it might be that they looked at his youth into consideration, because they probably saw that a lot of second-degree murderers are over the age.
Oh.
Yeah, way over the age. So they took his youth into consideration and probably thought that he had a weak moment, or
I guess, but I don't know. It kind of feels like the law is going against itself. I don't know, like contradicting itself.
I see what you're saying.
Yes.
I guess like if we take his youth into consideration, although he was over the age of 18, he is still considered like looking at the population of criminals, he is still considered a youth among the other criminals around.
Yes. I understand then.
Yes.
So also another mitigating factor that I didn't really understand was that during Mr. Nelson's trial, all his family attended, and
Yes.
the court considered that as a mitigating factor. How come?
I would assume that his family being a mitigating factor is because he has the support. His family was there through the entire trial, so it shows that he has family to lean on, family to direct him into the right path, as opposed to someone who has no family at all, no support at all, who's probably seen as a lost cause.
Oh, lost cause?
Yeah, exactly. They would consider that as a lost cause.
So,
what do you think about the sentencing and the judge's verdict?
I really agree with that, because, like, if you look at his, you know, like, criminal records when he was younger, you can tell that he never learned from his, like, I don't know, like, sentences or
his past sentences.
His past, right? Because he got away with a lot of things until, you know, the murder happened.
Yes.
But you know what really surprised me is that the police didn't flag him, because one of his one of his charges was what is it, assault, causing bodily harm.
Yes.
At 13.
Yes.
Do you know how severe you have to, like, assault someone to have that charge?
Yeah.
Like, for example, a normal assault, like an assault charge would just be you, like, pushing someone, or, like, touching someone. Assault causing bodily harm, there has to be, like, bones broken, teeth knocked out, black eyes, those
bleeding.
things. Exactly. Like, and he did that when he was 13.
Only 13.
And there was also another charge with him, assault with using a weapon, dangerous weapon.
Oh, I think it was robbery with a weapon.
Yes, robbery. Oh, by the way,
yes.
Let me go back. Let me circle back.
Okay.
So remember how he tried to use the defense of mental illness? What didn't, like, click on me? It's like, why would you use mental illness as a defense when you yourself, as a 13 years old, committed a crime of robbery? It goes to show that you had the mental capacity. You understood what you're doing. Robbery takes a lot of planning and following through in order to execute, like, the crime.
Okay.
So it shows that he had the mental capacity. He had the understanding. So to me, that was a very weak defense. And it goes to show that it's, like, normal for people to lie when it comes to doing those tests for court, because they just want to, like, gather
their defense.
No, like, not
defense. Like your complete defense.
No, like, to gather the community's sympathy. Exactly. So
to say that, oh, he was mentally ill, so he didn't understand.
Exactly. So I felt like he did lie a little bit.
Okay.
Because, I mean, the alcohol problem, I felt like it was, you know,
probably there.
It's probably true.
Okay.
But him having all those mental illness, like mental disease, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so at all. Yeah.
Honestly, like, with all of the evidence, all of the witnesses, I don't think he stood a
27,
chance.
right?
29 witnesses!
29 witnesses. My
29
goodness.
witnesses.
Mm.
I believe that he had no chance at all. He was gonna get convicted anyway, but the problem was with the credibility issue and with the eyewitness testimony when they didn't know if it was Mr. Muhammad or Mr. Nelson that really pulled the fire.
Yeah, and you know what's really interesting about Mr. Muhammad?
What's that?
Is that when I was reading the Canley, like searching up like what happened, right? Like researching all the legal documents, Mr. Muhammad was only mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then near the end, his name was never brought up after that.
And you know what's crazy?
What?
As I was looking over Mr. Muhammad's name to try to see if I could find any cases, I did find one, but there was a publication ban.
Oh.
I wonder why.
I think, you know what I think?
What?
I think he had the money to afford a really good lawyer in order for him to actually succeed and not being, you know, part of the crime at all.
True.
Because if you think about it, he started everything.
Yeah.
Right. He was even the initial, like the principal offender for assault at the beginning. If it wasn't for him, nothing would have happened.
Yeah, like even though he wasn't the one to really pull the trigger to kill Mr. Hicks, he's still
responsible. Yeah, he was responsible.
And he was let out what? Kind of free, like no conviction against him. Honestly, they should have fixed that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think the verdict that the judge gave was really good because it can't be used as a precedent. Like, for example, let's say Mr. Nelson did get away with it, with his defense. That would be a really good precedent that other criminal offenders would probably use.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of criminals that did commit a crime would be running around the community.
Exactly.
If he was actually able, if the lawyer was actually able to
secure
a complete defense.
Yeah.
Right?
And you know what else is sad? All the people that were affected by this, the witnesses, the team members, I wonder what his family was like going through.
Okay, so when I was actually researching, I saw an interview, and it was of Mylon Hicks's mother.
Oh.
And she basically said to the interview that she blamed herself. Yes, because she gave his son the approval to move to Canada. And Mylon and his mother are like the closest in his family. She's always there to support him, and Mylon was always there to support his family. And that's why she felt like she was responsible for her son's death.
Oh no.
Yeah, and before she gave the approval for him to move to Canada, she was actually researching about like Canada as a country.
Okay.
And she mentioned in the interview that she only heard about good things about Canada.
Oh.
She even described, like, she said on the interview,
Yeah.
like, she said that if you were to walk in the streets of Canada, in their city, you would walk with your fist, like with your fists unclenched, because you don't have to prepare for like anything to come attack you.
Oh.
Yeah, right? And she also mentioned that if you walk in the streets of Canada, you'll go home with your pockets full because no one is there to come steal from you. Her perception of Canada was basically this very safe country, not like where she originally lived in America.
Okay.
So she really trusted this country to protect her son.
Oh.
But lo and behold, she got that call about Mylon Hicks's death.
Yeah, like no mother wants to hear that call. That's so sad.
I know. And even the team was so devastated. Everyone was crying at the scene.
Yeah.
And when he was pronounced dead, his coach, his teammates just broke down because they even said they credited Mylon's energy that literally caused them to win that big game. Like all the teammates were saying that Mylon was that type of person that just bring about like the good in everyone. He was like a source of energy for the team. And because of him, they won so many competitions. And I guess they just like they lost a very valuable player. One of the teammates even said that they saw each other as a family. And one of them was like an older gentleman, and he saw Mylon as a son. I guess he lost his son that day.
That's so sad.
I know, so it's really sad for the family, for the people that were affected, but we're happy to say that Mr. Nelson is being held in.
He's held. He's gonna be put for he's gonna be put away for a while.
Yeah, so no more violent things are gonna happen.
thank God, and his case can't be used as a precedent because clearly it failed. Yeah, and we understand that this is a really heavy case, and for you listeners, please take some time, put your mental health first.
Yes.
And if you ever need to talk to someone, we're here. Talk to your family members, and please, please, please be careful who you are around.
Yes, please pick your friends like very nicely. Wisely.
Yes. And thank you for listening.
Yes, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.